Welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make a Scotch pasty, which I've done before, but this one is going to be slightly different. Scotch pasties tend to be a round disc of a scone or scone-like texture, and inside it is some raspberry jam, and then the top is iced and some coconut is put on top of the icing. But for this one I'm going to use apricot jam just as a variation. It's actually quite a simple recipe, but a little bit messy because the dough is very sticky, which it tends to be when you're making scones. And we start off by preheating the oven to 200 degrees Celsius, that's 180 Celsius with a fan, 400 Fahrenheit. And I've lined a baking tray with some parchment paper. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for this I have 250 grams, which is 1 2/3 cups of plain flour. That's based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 42 grams, 3 tablespoons of cold butter, which I've cut into cubes. I have 43 grams, 3.5 tablespoons of caster sugar, granulated would be okay. I have 1 medium egg, which would be large in the USA. I have 10 grams, 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 100 grams, 5 tablespoons of apricot jam. Then for the top I have 100 grams of icing sugar, that's a scant cup, slightly less than a cup of icing sugar, and 50 grams, half a cup of coconut. Now I'm using this shredded coconut, but you could use desiccated coconut. And I should say, although I've said 50 grams, it's actually a matter of personal preference. How much coconut you want to put on top of the icing is entirely up to you. And to make the icing, I'm going to use up to 20 milliliters, so 1 1/3 tablespoons of water, which I've measured out. So I don't need those for the time being. I also have 1 more egg, which I'm going to use as an egg wash, but you could use milk if you wanted to. Oh, I don't know whether I mentioned my milk here. I have 125 milliliters, which is half a cup plus 1 teaspoon of milk. So the first thing I want to do is to rub the butter into the flour to achieve a fine breadcrumb-like texture, and I'm going to do that for ease in the bowl of my immersion blender with a processor attachment. That just makes it quick and easy to do. But you could do it in a large bowl and rub it between your fingers. And that's good like that, so that was quick and easy. So I'm going to put that into a large bowl now. And into that I'm going to put the sugar and the baking powder, and I'm going to give those a stir around to get those combined into the flour. And then I'm going to add my milk and my egg, but I'm going to put the egg into the milk and just give it a whisk to break it up. like that. And then I'm going to just stir that around until I get a nice wet sticky dough. And the dough is nice and sticky and fully combined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip that out onto quite a heavily floured work surface. And as you can see, it's very sticky. And I'm going to put more flour on the top, but I'm actually going to sort of turn it over onto itself a little bit, just fold it in like that. I'm just turning it over on itself a few times, and then I'm going to cut it in half like that. And I'm going to take the first half and flatten it, and you can see little specks of butter, and that's fine. And I'm going to form it into a disc, which is about 6 inches in diameter. Like that. And I'm going to take a fork and prick it all over. Like that. And then I'm going to put my apricot jam on, and I'm going to spread it around, but I'm going to leave a gap all the way around the edge of the disc. Just like that. And I'm going to then take the other piece of dough and form it into a disc again, the same size. And I'm going to put it on the top and press it down, but first of all I want to brush around the rim with egg just to create a seal. So I'll take some of the egg and just brush all the way around the edge like that. And put the second piece on the top and press it down all the way around to seal the edge. Like that. And then I'm going to prick it all over again. This is to help it bake evenly. And I'm going to pick that up carefully and put it onto my prepared baking tray. Which is lined with parchment, just like that. And then I'm going to brush all over it with the egg. Just like that. I'm going to put that into the oven and I'm going to bake it for 20 minutes. And it should bake right through in that 20 minutes and it should rise up and colour nicely on the top. Then I'll take it out of the oven and carefully transfer it to a wire rack and allow it to cool completely. And once it's cooled completely, I'll come back and show you what it looks like, and then we'll put the icing and the coconut on the top. So I baked the Scotch pasty for 20 minutes and it looked well baked, so I took it out of the oven and it's now almost cool on the wire rack. So I'll put that to one side and we'll make the icing. And for the icing, I'm simply going to put the icing sugar into a slightly larger bowl, and I'm going to mix it with as much of the water as I need to make a fairly thick icing. And if I need more icing sugar because it becomes too thin, then I can add more icing sugar, but I can add more water if it's not thin enough, so to speak. But I want it to be thick enough that it will spread over the top but won't run off all the way down the side and onto the counter, so to speak. And that's probably just about thick enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that onto the top of the Scotch pasty, and then I'll spread it around. And I just want to cover the top just like that, and then I'm going to put on my coconut. And as I mentioned earlier, how much coconut you use is entirely up to you. And with the coconut on the top, I'm actually just going to press it down. because I want the coconut to adhere as much as it can. And as you can use desiccated coconut, of course, if you don't have shredded. So with that, like that, I'm simply going to leave it for it to for the icing to firm up, and then I'll come back and I'll cut it and we'll have a taste of it. So I have now cut the Scotch pasty with apricot jam and just cut a little section out. So it's actually baked up quite nicely, and I'll have a taste of this section. It's very, very good. I get the sweet, but also the tartness of the apricot jam, and the texture of the pasty itself is rather scone-like, as I mentioned. Then the sweetness of the icing and the coconut as well. So, very, very good, and quite easy to make, if a little bit messy. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.